So I'm going to map out what I see when I see a founder who has a business that is like growing and it's increasing in all the ways we would measure, particularly revenue and profit. But it threatens stagnation because it hasn't got a thing in of itself. It isn't becoming anything. In other words, it's like a soldier out there on the battlefield, and it's doing battle every day and it's succeeding. But there's this knowing that at some point it's going to run out of energy and it's going to get like crowded upon, as opposed to the general who is in a castle and kind of just like oversees the battle. That I've just literally just thought of that analogy, but I think the analogy works. Like, so a lot of these companies, they're kind of like down here and they're tussling it out with each other, and they're doing okay. Like I said, like you've got the knight here and things are going great for this person, but you actually want to be here. And this is quite an apt analogy because of the thinking around having a moat around your business, right? So Warren Buffett is the most sort of famous and oft quoted person that talks about moats, and moat is like defensive shield against attack. And people like to invest into businesses with moats. Why? Because they're protected. And the moat itself is kind of the USP, or it can be the USP. The thing that makes that business really special and differentiated, that means that people don't look elsewhere. You know, if they're looking for a specific product or service, they go here, you know, or they are regarded as the number one. And that position is compounded and cemented over time. And, you know, we look for businesses and founders who are good at compounding. You know, they have the ability to maintain that position, as opposed to businesses and founders that have gone off the rails, right? And there's a laundry list of examples of where that's happened, of course. So, you know, those are companies you steer clear from. And people like Buffett, you know, they've said that they really look at the founder deeply, you know, and then they keep the management in place, of course, when they buy these companies. So they're very deeply invested in not just the business, but the founder, because the founder is the one responsible for ensuring the protection, right? Ensuring the moat is still there, ensuring that the compounding is happening. So if we come back to the beginning of this video, like there is a big difference between these two groups of people, right? These two models, these two sort of types. And I would say that what is the journey to the castle, and what is the journey that ends up in exhaustion and fatigue and, you know, just stopping basically. And I think it's worth looking at that and asking yourself where you are on this journey. So let's just like map it out. I'm thinking of a founder that I know right now, and she is on this journey, and she is at a certain point right now. We want to create a brand that, you know, at the beginning, we want to create a brand that stands for something, you know, something we care about, a problem we really feel needs solving, and we want to solve it. We want to solve it well, and we want to be the best. And we have all these really great intentions. But then what happens is, as you move forward, I was joking with my wife earlier that about some people who they don't have a business as such, or their business is simply that they have a website and problems. And sometimes what happens is we go along this journey, and at some point we just have a website and problems, and it's very noisy and chaotic here. But look, like you keep going because something good is happening, right? So we start to get sales, we start to get momentum, and it's like, oh, like this is true. Like something we care about is true in the market. We're standing for something and it's true. People want it. The problem that we feel needs solving did need solving, and we're actually doing it. And oh, look, maybe we could be the best. And we keep going and we keep growing. And then we get people. And we get people like internally we hire or we take on external people, right? Like marketers, agencies, consultants. And then the noise is actually amplified. And then as we go through different challenges here, we look and we see like what is outside, you know, what shiny objects are going to solve this problem, this problem, this problem. And as we open our eyes to these things, as we open our sort of intellect or, you know, decision making, leaning into these things, we become very vulnerable, and we begin to accept truths which are not really truths. Like it's insidious. Like, go buy this software to help you do this, but actually, oh, your entire like logistics system needs an overhaul, or you're doing this entirely the wrong way, or this, you know, and people don't have your best interests at heart. And what can start as something fairly lightweight, like a software upgrade, can become like a full-on like challenge to what you're doing. And as you go forward, it's like this stuff starts to get a little less important. And there really becomes a point where there's a fork. I think it's not always this extreme, but what can happen is you go this way and you wind up in this place that I find a lot of people are wound up. And let me describe it to you. It looks like this. Again, its revenue is good, team is good, busyness is very high, stress is high, but to all intents and purposes, this is a business, right? This is a living, breathing, problem generating thing. But how long can it go on like this? Because what is not happening is you're not compounding, because you lost sight of something that you cared about in the beginning. You should have been trying to validate this. You should have been trying to ensure you stand for this. You should have ensured you were the best at solving this problem, right? All of the things, all of the ingredients that go into building a business that has a moat around it. Because if you have that, it will compound. And what it won't do is it won't give you this feeling of, at some point, this could stop. This could come crashing down. At some point, I'm going to be exhausted because I'm fighting this battle every day. And I don't know how much longer I can do that. And again, yeah, I'll take credit. Great. Yeah, I'm doing this. I'm posting on LinkedIn saying our first quarter results are 25% up on last year, blah, blah, blah. Great. But this has a lifespan that's not that long. And before you know it, you start to compromise. Before you know it, your products were made in France, now they're made in China. Before you know it, like your team is heavily churning. Before you know it, your customer service is going down the tubes. At some point, you took this path. What do you do instead? There's only one thing you can possibly do. And nobody wants to do it, and it's so hard. And I've seen people physically unable to do this, it's to zoom out and to get clarity. That's it. Dare I say, it's to have someone help you do that as well, and help you to see and see where you're going. Someone you trust, ideally. So what's the answer? I don't know. I don't know that there is one. I think there's just a path and a danger. And I shoot this to make you aware of it. I shoot this so you might be able to figure out where you are on this trajectory. And I shoot this to show you where this leads. Is this salvageable? It is. You're just more deeply in it at this point. Like, there's more to undo and there's more risk, right? Because something is big. Something is bigger. There are people, there is revenue. And it's like, ooh, do I really need to like shrink my product range now? That sounds like a big bet. Whereas if you were further back, it wouldn't be. It'd just be a correction, a course correction. And you can go on growing and growing and growing, and then watch this thing compound. What it means is as well, you're actually building something. You're actually building something to last, as opposed to like continually trying to build and maintain, build and maintain, build and maintain. You're actually investing in something that you can at some point step away from and be like, point to and go, there it is. There's my life's work. There's the fulfillment of the things I set out to do in the first place. And it's standing on its own. I say all this because this is possible. And I don't want you to feel like this is the only path. This is actually very possible. But once again, I would say you need clarity, but what you need before clarity is you need to realize that that is necessary. You need to be predisposed to wanting to stay out of the noise and wanting to avoid this. You know what you also need is belief in what you set out to do, and the ability to read the patterns and see the signals and see the validation that you've already achieved for the thing that you had, and stay the course and keep building into it. And don't allow yourself to be distracted. You know, I'm not going to close with a bunch of advice here. I'm just going to ask you, do you see yourself on this path? Do you recognize yourself in it? And if so, just drop me a comment. I would love that. Tell me where you think you are and give me your thoughts on whether this is true for you or if you've noticed this in other people. And what do you suggest? Like, what brings you back? And how have you maybe experienced taking the wrong path, or how have you seen other people do that? And that in of itself, I think, could be a really powerful kind of lesson from watching this video. All right, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.